Good morning, and thank you for joining us today for Census Bureau Data 101 Resources and Services. This session is the first of four census data workshops OLIS is offering in 2025. Today's session includes a tour of the Census Bureau's website and a demonstration on how to quickly pull up your community's data profile. Guiding us through the website and its plethora of data is Nicole McKenzie, Data Dissemination Specialist from the U.S. Census Bureau. Welcome, Nicole.
Hello. Okay, we're all ready? Well, Kelly, thanks for having me. And again, I'm going to share this presentation slide. I have a lot of really good links in it. So when you get it, you can directly go into some of the areas that I demonstrate and talk about. And if you have questions, put them in the chat, and Kelly will stop me as needed. And I did save some time at the end, so if we want to have discussion and more questions and answers, we will have time for that. So with that, I'm going to minimize so you don't minimize on my screen here so we don't see this. Let's see. There we go. I want to block my slides. Put it down here. All right. So I started with the Census Bureau in 2019. I live up in New Hampshire and I worked the 2020 decennial census. And then I moved into this data dissemination and trading branch, which my job is to do exactly what I'm doing today for you all. I provide virtual trainings, workshops. I demonstrate any of our data tools that we have that help you access some of the great data that we have. And I'm always happy to do a one-on-one session with you, provide a large group training for your library. If you have questions or if you see something that you want more information or training on, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is on the slide. I'm always happy to schedule a time to go through any of this with you or with others at the library as needed. Part of our training team that we have a Census Academy, which is on our site. So there are a lot of really great recorded webinars and courses on that site, as well as we have live webinars that you can register for. All of this training is free, and it's a way to help the public access the data that we're collecting to help with some of the many needs that you may have. So just some of the ways that, and I was thinking, how can Census Bureau help libraries? One of the top ways is really understanding your community demographics. So you'll see as we go through, you can get a handle on the population, race and ethnicity, education attainment, income, any of that type of demographic data on who lives in your community is so helpful as you're looking to develop programs in the library. If you have a lot of young children, you may want to offer more children's programs. The data that we have is also good for advocacy and funding support. So as you're going to your board and you're advocating for a new program, it's beneficial sometimes to use this census data to show that there is a need. The data that we have also helps with grants. Many of the grant writers in the communities come to me and they're really looking at providing this data to add to their applications, just as verification that the need is there, or validation, I would say. It also helps you identify any underserved populations you might have. It helps with resource allocation and planning. Also, if you're looking at maybe expanding library services to another area of the city or the town, it will kind of give you an idea through our mapping analysis of where populations may reside within your community, where it may be more beneficial to bring library services to that location. It helps with supporting research. It gives you a good idea of economic and employment analysis. Do you have a lot of unemployed people living in your community? What does that look like? And then enhancing digital literacy too. I serve New England, so the states that I cover basically all of New England with the exception of Connecticut. And we have a lot of small rural communities, and especially up in the areas of Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont, in digital literacy sometimes it shows that maybe there isn't broadband access or something in an area, and it really helps libraries provide some of that for the community. This is just an overview of how today's session will go. I am going to give you a brief overview of the Census Bureau and some of our popular surveys. I'm then going to get into the census geographies. So there's many different geographies on which you can pull data, and I will go over that with you. And then we'll jump into how you access this data. I will provide a live demonstration. We'll go onto our website, census.gov. I'll give you a little tour, show you where some of these resources are located. And then I will get into a demonstration on data.census.gov, which is our premier data access tool. One component of my job is I will get questions in from people looking for specific data requests. And when I do get those requests, I would say about 85% of the time, I go into this one tool, data.census.gov, and I can help them find what they're looking for. So it's a really good tool that gives a lot of benefits once you understand how to use it. So a little bit about our census overview and our popular surveys. I did put on this background that shows flowers and spring. I hope you all enjoy that because I think we're on the cusp. I feel like we've finally gotten some good weather here in New England. So I just put that on for your viewing pleasure. But let me go into the Census Bureau. So we are the federal government's largest statistical agency. We are out there conducting 130 censuses and surveys all the time. Many times people recognize us more often when we're conducting a decennial census because that's when you see, more representatives out in the field. You see more advertisements and posters and all of that. But we are continuously conducting censuses and surveys, all different types. The data that we collect really drives federal funding, how it's distributed to states in your community. And in this number, I believe, was from 2021, which was after the pandemic. So more federal funding was going out. But in that year, over $2.8 trillion in federal funding was distributed based in whole or in part from our data that we have. This slide is, there's a link here too. I felt when I talked to some libraries across New England, many times people ask me about if we have anything that goes back and provides the history of the census or what the decennial census looked like back in 1790. We actually have a page, and the link is on this slide, that will let you look at all different types of historical information on the Census Bureau. So if anyone's doing research or looking for data back in the early 1800s, they can go on this site and access some of that data, which is pretty fascinating. You can pull up questionnaires from 1790 and see the questions that were asked and how it's changed over the decades. So just to talk about, I'm going to talk about two of the census surveys where much of our data is coming from, where you would be accessing to help support your needs. So the first is that decennial census. We are mandated by the Constitution to conduct this every 10 years. The very first one we did was in 1790. It was actually marshals, U.S. Marshals on horseback that were counting all of the people in the United States at that time. The data that we collect is used to apportion the number of seats each state has in the House of Representatives. And it also helps with that funding distribution of allocation of funds. One thing, we do conduct this, and it's a 100% count of all households populations in the United States on those years ending in 0. So we are actually already in the planning stages for the 2030 census, which will be coming up before we know it. The American Community Survey. This is our largest survey that we conduct. And it's 3.5 million addresses every year that we're out there collecting a lot of information. So if you've ever received this American Community Survey, you're probably not excited about it because it's 72 questions long, but it does provide data users with a lot of really good, rich information that helps decision making and planning within their communities. So when we go into the demonstrations, you'll see that a lot of the data we're looking at comes from this American Community Survey. This survey was actually the old long form of the decennial. So one in, I believe it was 8 households used to get a long form. The public was requesting that they get this type of data more often than every 10 years. So in 2005, we started this annual American Community Survey. So it really provides that good information. You can get the data from this at the national level all the way down to a block group level. So you can take your town or your city where your library is located, and you can dissect it down to maybe census tracts or block groups to analyze not just the total number in your community, but kind of where those areas are. And that helps with that maybe location of library services or outreach, where you would want to outreach within your community. The data from this survey is released in 1 year and 5 year increment. 5 year, we call it ACS 1 year and ACS 5 year. The difference, if you live in a community that has over 100,000 in population, which is, main cities, not New England. New England doesn't have a lot of those unless you're looking at some of the counties or your state. Some cities will have more than 100,000. You can access ACS 1 year data. If you live in a smaller community, you're going to be looking at the 5 year data, which that is providing more samples. So you have 5 years of sampling. But it cover right now the 2023 American Community Survey is available, which covers information data we've received from surveys from 2019 to 2023. Our 2024 ACS will be coming out in September, actually December, the 5 year, in September for the 1 year. This slide here shows kind of the type of information you can get from the American Community Survey versus the decennial. So the pillars in the back, these columns, this shows you that from the American Community Survey, you can get social, economic, housing, and demographic data. And I have these little DPO2, DPO3 in the parentheses here. Those are the data profile tables. There are 4 of them, and they're kind of, one of my coworkers talks about them as being kind of the Walmart of tables because they give you a lot in one data table. So if you're looking for, commuting to work information, part of this is also work from home. So it's how people get to work. Do they work from home? That type of data would be under the economic characteristics of data profile table 3. So it just shows you the type of information you can get. The decennial census, on the other hand, it's 10 questions. So we got 72 question survey versus a 10 question census. The 10 question census provides the demographics, some of the housing information, but we have to wait for it every 10 years. The one thing to also remember when you're looking at the data coming from these 2 sources is that the American Community Survey is the sample, so there is a margin of error in it because it's only a sampling, whereas the decennial is a full count of all households across America. We do show you the margin of error as well, so you'll be able to look at that. In addition to those 2, like I said, we have over 130. I couldn't possibly go through them all in the time given, but we also have Census Bureau economic surveys. So we do monthly and quarterly surveys of businesses to provide some timely data. We also have annual surveys of businesses to show trend data, how businesses are doing. And then we have every 5 years, we conduct an actual economic census, which measures all businesses and provides a really comprehensive baseline of the economy. In addition to collecting all of this data and information for the Census Bureau, we actually contract with other federal agencies to provide data for them as well. Here is a sampling of them. For instance, HUD, we're gathering data for HUD, which then HUD has their own tools on their site that provides information more in depth on American housing. One that you may be familiar with is the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Monthly, they release the unemployment rate. So that is something that comes out of the U.S. BLS, but we are actually gathering the data to provide to them, and then they report that out. One thing I'll say about that before I move on is if you're applying for grants to some other federal agencies, it's really helpful and beneficial to use the Census Bureau data because many of these other agencies are using our data as well. So, you know, if you're applying for a HUD grant, HUD is using our data. So they see that as our data as reliable and accurate data. So now we're going to have a little census geography lesson for people who like geography. This we call our Census Bureau geographical hierarchy. And what it shows is that you can get data from at the national level all the way down to the block level. So this is kind of the main, you know, starting at the largest of the nation all the way down to the block. So the block is a very small, it would be equivalent to maybe a city block. So it's a very small geography. You cannot get American Community Survey data at this level because of the sampling. So the sample size is too small. We don't release data at the block level for the American Community Survey, but you can get decennial census information at the block level. So you remember from the table, it would be those 10 questions. You can actually get down to the block level. I recommend when we're looking at data, when we really look closer into your communities, if you want to kind of dissect your town into areas, I would recommend maybe going to the census tract level. And the reason being is that census tract level is roughly 4,000 to 8,000 in population. And it provides enough in population so your margin of error you know, is less than maybe if you went to the block group level of data. So that's just what I find when I'm looking for data. If you want to, you know, look at your town closer, you'll see on this hierarchy there are little offshoots, and what this depicts is that these other types of geographies fall or they nest within one of the geographies on the geographical spine. So, for instance, a zip code tabulation area that nests under the nation because sometimes zip code tabulation areas cross state boundaries. So you'll see within a state, you know, if you can pull data by congressional district, by school district. So if you wanted to, school districts sometimes cross city or town lines, but they all fall within a state. So that's just kind of showing you how you can pull data by these types of geographies. I will tell you, we have more geographies than on this slide, but most people, when they're looking for data, I find they're looking at the county subdivision level, which is over here, which in New England is the best way that I've found to search for your town or your city. So you would be searching for county subdivisions, which would be your cities and towns. Cities and towns also fall under places, but for some reason, our New England geography is a little different than other areas. So sometimes you may look for your town under a place in New England, but it might not be there. If it isn't, look under county subdivision, it is likely there. And if you ever have any troubles finding your area, definitely reach out. So here is a little closer look on Rhode Island. So in data.census.gov, you can pull data tables. You can also visualize the data in a map format. And in this session, we're not going to get into this deeply. It will be another session that we're going to offer as part of this series in Rhode Island. But I wanted to show you how, you could get a larger view of different areas. So here on the left, I just show the counties in Rhode Island. They're different colors because um, when I mapped these, I was using one of the data profile tables. So I'm not sure what I use for characteristics. It could be older population, it could be children. I don't remember what I use, but it'll highlight to you like what areas have higher concentrations of a certain characteristic. So this shows you the counties. Then you could actually take the whole county, Providence County, and you can break that up. And this would be all your cities and towns within Providence County. And then you could pull out the city of Providence and you could break that down into census tracts. So, this is where you can really refine your area. You could also break it down into block groups. Or if you're using decennial data, you could get down to that block level within the city. So it's pretty interesting how you can really take a look at your community and what is there. So data access, that's a kind of a quick overview on some of our surveys and censuses as well as our geographies. So we have all this data that we're gathering and we want to make sure that you all are accessing it. So we have many different ways to access the data. I don't know why this is not going away. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so I've listed here. We have, gosh, we have 58. I would say last I counted, I think we had 58 different data tools on our site that help you access the different types of data you may be looking for. That's a lot of tools. We also have visualizations. We have interactive maps. We have stories that are written based on findings from a survey may highlight something. We'll write a story on that. You can access that. You can also, we have a API system where you can download our data right into your software if you have software. A lot of the states will do that. So there's many different ways, but the majority of the folks that I work with, a lot of the libraries, they go to our data tools. And you can see here, data.census.gov, I have that listed first. That's the one I go to 85% of the time to answer any questions for people. And this is what the landing page is. So I won't talk about that much because we're going to go into that. We also have narrative profiles, which is another great tool. So if you're looking for less tables of data, but maybe a write-up. So maybe you're writing a grant and you want some help with your narrative, you can go into narrative profiles for your community, and you can pull up a lot of information on that. That will get down to the census tract level, so you can get pretty specific in that tool. We have Census Business Builder. So if you have businesses in your community. I know Portsmouth Library several years ago, I actually went to the library and they offered a census business builder for small businesses and entrepreneurs. And I basically demonstrated how you can use Census Business Builder to analyze your community for competitors, for potential customers, your workforce, how much you might have to pay if you're going to locate a business there. And this tool actually will provide it's kind of a report that it prints out, and it will help with a business plan. So if someone's looking at locating a new business, they can take this report, put it right with their business plan. It just shows maybe banks or financing people that they've done their research and that it's a viable investment. We have On the Map. That's another one. We have On the Map for emergency management. So this shows there's a flows section of this where it might show your community, how many people live in your community and how many people work there versus how many people leave to work elsewhere or how many people come into your community. So that may be important for libraries if you serve people that may not live in the community but work in the community. That tool would be helpful. We have My Survey Explorer. That's another one. I mentioned we have 130 censuses and surveys. If you want to say, maybe you want to look up and say, what surveys does the Census Bureau conduct that include information on housing? You could go into this My Survey Explorer tool. You could put in housing and it would show you how many surveys that we have that are providing detailed data on housing. And then it provides you links to those surveys and how to access that data. So that's kind of a neat tool, just to give you an idea of the different surveys based on a topic. And then we have quick facts. Quick facts, I mean, I will be demonstrating some of these in another workshop that we're hosting, but quick facts is exactly what it is. It's a way to quickly pull up facts on communities. The only downside that I experience with quick facts is that it is only for communities of 5,000 in population or more. So if your community has 5,000 or above in population, you can use quick facts, pull up some quick facts on your community. If you fall under that, which many New England towns do, they're not going to find their data in quick facts. So I find I just will show them data.census.gov where they can find, everything they can find in quick facts is in this tool. So this is the landing page of data.census.gov. When we go into the tool, you'll see that there's a general search bar that we're going to use today. And then there's an advanced search, and the advanced search really allows you, the difference between these two is the general search is kind of like, I look at it as almost like online shopping. So if you just type in pants, you're going to get a lot of results. And that's what happens when you type in something in the general search. You're going to get many, many tables. You might get 3,000 or 4,000 tables. So you get a lot, but it can take time to weed through that. If you use the advanced search, it's almost like taking that online shopping experience and saying, okay, I want women's size 7 jeans. It just narrows your search down. And that's what the advanced search will do. It allows you to put in different filters. So if you're looking for specific, if you're trying to find specific data, it will narrow maybe 3,000 tables down to, 100 or 50, or if you use the data profiles, it narrows it down to 4. So that's just the difference between the two types of searches. The tool itself is an amazing tool. I actually love this tool. It's really, you can find so much in it. You can visualize, you can access tables, you can get those maps that I showed you in the slide previous. It will let you analyze your community based on maps. It creates reports that you can customize. You can download tables right into Excel. So there's so many things that this tool will do to help you with data. It also has for people who are writing grants out there, we have a fairly new feature. It's a citation feature. So it'll let you cite where the data comes from. So sometimes when you have to do those citations, you have to write them all out and it takes forever. I was a grant writer and I always used to hate to write that page because you had to write everything. This allows you just to copy and paste, and it will give you where all the data came from that you put into your grant application or your report. The data in this tool comes from various sources. The American Community Survey, which we talked about, you'll see a lot of the tables pull that American Community Survey data, but it also pulls in information from the decennial census, the economic census, different surveys for the economy, population estimates, and even public sector data is in here as well. Population estimates, I will just say, you get this in quick facts as well. We do population estimates in between the decennials. So it's based on deaths, births, in migration, out migration. So it kind of provides an estimate in between those decennial years, which are the hard numbers. Before I get into the demonstration, I always like to talk about these other resources. They're great for library staff. We have an age search service. So if you have somebody at your library or someone who is looking for proof of age or citizenship, We have a form, it's called the BC 600 form, and it formally requests an individual's census record. So no one else can get my census record, but if I wanted to pull my census record, I could use this BC 600 form and request that. And the State Department and other agencies recognize this as an alternative to birth certificates for passports or court required documentations. If you don't have your birth certificate or you don't have anything that shows citizenship, you can pull your own file through this form. There is a fee involved, but that is something to be aware of. And then the other thing I like to talk about, this is particularly apparent during a decennial census because every house is getting counted. People will come in and they'll want to know if the mailing they receive from the Census Bureau is legitimate or if it's a fraudulent thing. Maybe there's a census worker at their door. We have sometimes people who are out there for the American Community Survey in the year 2025, and the household will say, wait a minute, the 2020 census is over. It's 2030 is too far away. Why is someone here at my door? There is a way to identify that field representative does work at the Census Bureau. It's right on our main page. You can type the name in, it will verify the person. Also, if someone gets a phone call, there's a way to verify that. So that's just something to share with library patrons if they're unaware or if they have questions. They will be able to verify if something's legit. There's just so many attempts now to get information. We want to make sure that it's really us that's contacting people and they know that it's us. So I think we are now to kind of the fun part. If anyone has any questions, Kelly, before I get into the demonstration, otherwise I can go right into the demonstration.
I don't see any at present, unless someone wants to unmute and ask right now. Otherwise, I would say you're good to go on to the demo.
Okay. And I'll have some time at the end too. So if questions come up at the end, that's fine. So I'm going to click on this link here. It will bring us to our website. So here is the landing page. The website's www.census.gov. And as we look at the top ribbon here, you can see you can scroll across. When you hover over these areas on this top ribbon, it brings up choices. So first is topics. So if you're wanting to find out as much as you can about what we do for international trade, you can go to topic and you can click on that. You can click on education. So this allows you to search by these different areas. And these are more the popular ones people are looking at that come up when you hover over topics. But just so you know, over here, there's view all topics and subtopics. So we have more than this. But these are the ones that I think people are looking for more often. So they kind of, come up on the main page. But once you click on these, there is a lot of information. And I will say that if you've ever gotten lost on our website, which I did in the beginning, I still do actually, an easy way to get back to the landing page is click on our logo and it will bring you back to the landing page. So that's just something to be aware of if you kind of go down those rabbit holes and say, oh, how do I get back? That's a quick way. So next, I'm going to just hover over the data and map section. And this is where Census Academy is located. If you wanted to do any more trainings, we have our data tools and apps section. This is where you can click on. I'll just click on this one to show you. It lists all of the different data tools and applications we have for you to access data. Like I mentioned, there were over 58 the last time I counted. They are in alphabetical, but the 2020 census starts first. We also have a 2030 Census Research Project Explorer, Planning Ahead, Access Broadband Dashboard. So these are all the tools, and you can get to a tool just by scrolling down this list, if there's something that looks interesting, you can click on it. It'll bring you right into the data tool. There's the Census Business Builder I was talking about. So those are the tools. And now I'm going to go scroll over the surveys and programs. Let me just see if there's anything else. Oh, here we have interactive maps, visualizations here, some of the profiles, data profiles you can find there. So there's just different trainings and workshops, again, you can sign up for through Census Academy. Scrolling over to surveys and programs, you can look at a certain survey. So I talked about the American Community Survey. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to the surveys section and you can click on this and it will show you everything you want to know about the American Community Survey. It'll show you how to get the data, questions that are asked. If you want to see what the questionnaire is, you can get it on that link. You can also look at 2030 census, see what we have there that we're planning for the upcoming 2030 census. But again, these are the ones that kind of boil to the top, or the ones people are looking for more often. We do have more, so you can click on view all surveys and programs. It will give you the list of everything that all the surveys and programs that we have. So if what you are looking for isn't here, you can click over on this link to the left. Then we have our resource library. This is where we have stories. So we have America Count stories. If something in a survey shows interesting, we have some writers who will write a story about it. We have photos, publications, fact sheets, all kinds of information, infographics and visualizations. So there's a lot of information here. And again, all of this resources if you click this tab here. So I am going to, let me see, I'm going to click on the logo to just bring me back to the landing page. So on the landing page, I'm going to scroll down now. So we kind of went through the top ribbon, but let's scroll down. In the first, we always have like a story. So this is, recent, it was data that was found. So a story was written on the growth in metro areas, which outpaced the growth of the nation. The metro areas grew more. So that's providing a recent story that was written. We have quick links over to the left. There's verify you're in a survey. We also have on our main page, need help with a survey. So this is that area that if someone is receiving a survey or has someone at their door, this right on the landing page, scrolling down, this is where they would verify if the letter was legit or the person at their door is really working for the Census Bureau. This is where that information would be held. We also, as we scroll down, we see that we have data tools, data access tools that are listed in the big long data tools and apps section, but we put on our main page quick access to QuickFacts and data.census.gov. So this is where I hate to say majority of the people are looking, but I feel like for me, when like I said, when I'm looking for data, I go into this data.census.gov. But if you have a community over 5,000, you certainly can use QuickFacts. But they're on our main page, which tells me that those are ones people are going to more often. We have a population clock here. It tells you the US population and the world population. And then we also have the US indicators. So we have all of this information that's updated. It's recent data. It's released April 29th. So that was yesterday. So this is providing information on the economy, which is very useful for different reasons. We have recent updates, news, and events. So if you scroll down, you'll see more information that we have available. America Count stories. These would be some of the more recent stories that we wrote. For instance, which states had the highest shares of newcomers? That was yesterday. That was released. So we have, as I mentioned, all kinds of information coming out daily. And then if you scroll all the way to the bottom of our landing page, this has different events. So it will show you based on release dates of data. So tomorrow we have economic indicator, construction spending is coming out. So any of these dates, you can click on them and it just shows you what is coming out. So if there's interest there, that's how you find it. So that's our kind of the website tour. Now I want to go in and show you how to quickly pull up some very useful information for your community that you're serving, that your library is serving. So we're going into data.census.gov. I could go to data maps and go over here to the tools. It also shows up here. And then, as I mentioned, it shows up on our main page. So there's many ways to get to this app. If you are following along with me, you can also just go into your browser, your URL, and just type in data.census.gov, and it also brings you to the home page. So I'll just go in this way. All right, so here is the main page. And as I mentioned previously, we have this general search and we have the advanced search. The only time I use the general search is if I'm just, looking for the profile. Otherwise, I go into the advanced search, or you could just get a lot of tables to look through, but you're welcome to do it either way. So I'm going to show you. So if your library is located in, I'm going to pick Newport. Unless somebody really wants me to pull up their library's location, you could come off mute and yell, but if not, I'm going to put in Newport. If
I'm
Newport's
coming in from Newport. Please do Newport. I'm very excited.
okay. Oh, good. I'm glad we have somebody from where I'm going to pick. So when you type Newport, it says Newport County, Rhode Island, Newport News. So you're looking at this and you're like, oh gosh, Newport's not here. What I found, many places it will show up. For Newport, it doesn't. But if you type in city, it brings up Newport City. So just something to be aware of. When you're using the general search, you might have to add Newport Town or Newport City to find your location, but usually it will pull up in one of your choices. So I'm going to click on Newport City, Rhode Island. And immediately what it does, it brings up a lot of data. It also brings up, if you look here, you'll see 3,004 data sets. So data tables, you can see here, there's a whole list of them. There's 3,000. So there's a lot of information we have that you can pull data for Newport City. A lot to scroll through. There are also 4 profiles. Those are the data profile tables from the American Community Survey that will give you a lot in one table. And that's the housing, the demographic, the economic, and the social characteristics. So you can pull that. But for today's presentation, I'm going to show you, once you do this and you pull this up, what I recommend is coming over here you can see there's a little box and it just gives you some quick data on Newport and it shows you where Newport is. There's a little clickable view profile link here, and I'm going to click on that. So this, you can get so much, and you'll see as my computer slowly loads the data. Just by going into data.census.gov, typing in your city or your town, and then going to that profile of the city or the town, you can get all of what I'm going to show you here, which is quite a bit. So the top, it shows you again the map. You can share the profile. So you can click on that, and it allows you, if you wanted to, share the link directly to this profile on your website. That's something you could do. You could share it if you have a Facebook page for the library. There's many different ways that you could use that to share, which might be beneficial to your community. I find so many people, when they see what we have for data, they're amazed. And sometimes I actually think of I was talking to a librarian in New Hampshire once, and she was saying, I have to get through to the public that we're so much more than books now. And I was thinking, I have to get through to the public. We're so much more than the decennial census. And so there was like a relationship there. It's like so many people aren't aware of what we all have. And same with libraries. You offer so much. And I think that, not the public doesn't always know everything that you offer there. And it is so much more than books. So let me scroll down a little bit. What you see is in this first ribbon, it pulls that data that people are interested in. It segments it out by population and people, employment, families and living arrangements. So it kind of pulls to the top of this page data on Newport that you can gather. One of the things that I love about this, remember I told you, well, when we did the general search, we saw there were like 3,000 tables that we could access. By going into the profile, it allows you to get a kind of a quick, easy path to a certain table. So if you're looking for housing information on Newport, it tells you 13,466 housing units. It tells you this is taken from the 2020 decennial, so it was a full count. But the best part of this is it gives you a link to the data table. So all of these little blue links are data tables that you can find. So you can click on any of them and it will bring you into the table. So let me just click on DPO2. This is one of the data profiles from the American Community Survey. You can click on that and it brings you right to that table. So when you're into it, it will bring up the table. And this is the information from the social characteristics table, the DP profile. It starts to tell you about households, married couples. So there's a lot of information in here that it provides. Marital status, fertility, grandparents responsible for their grandchildren. So this is just one table, and we're going to have another session where I'm going to get into detail on this table, but I wanted to show you how when you click on those little blue links from the profile, it brings you into the table and it will show you the margin of error and all that. But let me go back because I want to show you more of this general page of the profile. Come on, computer. I do have fiber, but it seems slow here. Okay, there we go. So here we are. So again, there's all of the links, but I'm going to scroll down a little bit further and see what else is on this page. So we have this thing called the population pyramid, and it is displayed here. And it's a great visualization for you. You can share this, you can embed it. So if you're doing a newsletter or you want to put on your website, what your community looks like, age breakout by male and female. These all look different depending on the community. And they're fascinating sometimes, I find. I mean, Newport, it's showing, age 20 to 29, you have large numbers in that field. And then you have a little bump up here in 70 to 74-year-olds. So it just gives you an idea of what your community looks like in 5-year age increments by male and female. I'm going to continue to scroll down. Now, as I'm scrolling down, I'm actually going across this top ribbon. So these are those characteristics that showed up on the top ribbon. And I'm going to scroll down. Each one has a little more detail as we scroll down. So we're on population and people still. It provides language spoken at home. So for Newport, 11.1% of the population speak language other than English, which is lower than Rhode Island as a whole. So it gives you a comparison to see how your community compares to the state as a whole. And if you want to know more about that, again, there's a quick link to the table where that came from. It's saying it came from the 2023 American Community Survey 5-year estimates. So you could click on the table and get more information. Shows you the types of language spoken at home. So English is by far, 88%, but then Spanish comes in second, and then other Indo-European languages, and followed by Asian. It provides information on native and foreign-born, naturalized U.S. citizens, not U.S. citizens, You can also display the margin of error if you want in this. Shows where that came from, DPO2. Older population, it looks like Newport's pretty close to the state as a whole. 65 years and older, 20%. Older population, so it's showing here that of your older population, the majority is between 65 and 74. You have 2.5% above 85. Residential mobility. It looks like 11.3% moved from a different state in the last year to Newport, whereas the state as a whole, 2.9%. So, this is showing me that when people are moving to Rhode Island, you have more people moving to the Newport area, as opposed to the state as a whole. Residential mobility. So this is getting into veterans, how many veterans, a higher percentage of veterans in Newport as opposed to the state as a whole. So maybe you have veterans programs at the library, veterans by sex. Now we're getting into income and poverty. So you can see the median household income, and it breaks it out by family. So, non-family households, that would be people who live together who aren't related, and then married couple households, and then families would be people living together who are related. Poverty. The poverty rate is 15.1%, which is higher than the state as a whole. I'm not sure. That was surprising to me when I looked at that for Newport, but it could be that you have a lot of younger folks that are there, and maybe they're sharing, they were non-family households, maybe they're sharing apartments, maybe it's college students. But that was kind of surprising when I looked at Newport, but I was always told, look behind the numbers. So, when you see something, do a little more research on it. Poverty by age. So this is showing you the age. So under 18, the poverty is higher than for older citizens in the town. Education, showing your education attainment rate, your much higher education rate average as opposed to the state as a whole. And then it breaks the education down. School enrollment. So you can see, I'm just scrolling down to show. If anyone has any questions and wants to come off mute, feel free, because I'm scrolling to show you what is here, because I think you can get so much from those two simple steps in this data.census.gov tool. Class of worker. We're getting into commuting. So average time to work, 19.4 minutes versus the state as a whole. So most people don't have a long commute. This is the means of transportation. This is where you find work from home. So it shows that 16.4% work from home. And 60.3% drove alone, carpool. Just provides some pretty neat information. Again, employment and labor force. Industry shows you where most folks are working. Looks like the top is educational services and healthcare and social assistance. That's where the industry is 24.7% in Newport, followed by the arts and recreation. Makes sense, on the water. Shows occupation, work experience, housing. So I'm over here, I'm to the housing. We have health, families, and race and ethnicity to go. Financial characteristics, occupied units paying rent, home ownership rate, housing values. So here your housing values have a lot of high housing values, 1 million or more. Housing units, occupancy characteristics. Just going down through. If anyone wants me to stop at a certain thing, I can, but hopefully you'll all go in and put in your library's location and do a little searching and see if you find something. If you do find something and you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out. Health. See what we have. We have a few minutes left for questions as I scroll. If you haven't seen any, Kelly, I'll just keep scrolling.
Yeah, no questions yet.
Okay. So we do have information on a disability breakout too, so you can actually look at your community and see not only percentage of disabilities, but then you can actually see detailed the disabilities that are within the community. Fertility, women, fertility rates, health insurance, families and living arrangements. So depending on what you're wanting to use the census data for, there's just so much you can find here. If you want to start a preschool program, you can look and see, all right, most of the children, it looks like in Newport, you have a lot of 5 to 14-year-olds. Under 5 is 3.6%. Now, remember, this is taken for the 2023 5-year estimates too. So as we include going, a 5-year period, some of those children, there's new children that have been born. So, you may want to look at that as well. If you're, say you want to put in a preschool program, because this is only showing 3.6%, but it wouldn't include, children that were born in 24 and 25, and maybe you have larger populations that you could pull from another source to make that case. Marital status. This is interesting. It shows kind of a visual for marital status by male and female. And then the last section is the race and ethnicity section. So, and this breaks it out: American Indian, Alaska Native. Now, this is taken from the decennial, so this is a count. So there's there wouldn't be any margin of error. It would be the total count on the decennial in 2020, 444 Asian versus 38,000 as a whole in Rhode Island. Black or African American, 1492. Hispanic or Latino, 2975. Native Hawaiian, not Hispanic or Latino, some other race, 2 or more races, white. So that is, that's the profile. So here we are at the end. I'm going to put my information up here. If anyone wants to see more, again, we are doing, I don't know if you want to mention, Kelly, the other sessions that we're doing. We're going to get into a much deeper dive, and then I'm also going to demonstrate more tools on how to quickly find data, I think in the next session in June.
Yes. So yeah, we're in for the next one is June 4th, and that one is data on a deadline, quick access data tools and visualizations. So that one is get to all those different, neat tools that you referenced. And then in September, we're going to do one on genealogy. And in October, that's going to be the deep dive. That one's where you're going to get into the nitty gritty details of those tables. So, but all of them you can sign up for them already. They're already on our calendar. Yeah. So,
and I would say if you can't wait until October for the deep dive and you really want to learn more about the tables, reach out. I'm happy to do a one-on-one session with you as well. So that's what I'm here for.
Thank you. I do have one question that I think others might benefit from. Just could you clarify the difference between the ACS 1-year and the 5-year? Like I understand that, like when it says it's the 5-year, is it that is it the sum of 5 years of data on the same people, or, how does that work?
Every year we do a random sampling of 3.5 million households. So the 1 year, say the 2023 1 year, would be the results of all of the samples we took in 2023. The 5-year would be taking the samples that we collected in 23 all the way back to 2019. So it's taking all of those samples together to provide that information. So I always look at it, you can look at it a couple, like if I was a city and I could have access to 5-year data or 1-year data, I think it's good to look at both, because if you look at the 1 year, your sample size is smaller because it's only 1 year of sampling, but it's more recent. So maybe your housing prices and things like that might be might be closer to what the pricing is today. But if you look at the 5-year, you're pulling in a lot more samples, a lot more data that was put in, because you're actually accessing 3.5, well, on a national level, 3.5 million households times 5, because it's 5 years of sampling. So you get more. Your margin of error is usually, I find, is lower on the 5-year because the sample size is bigger because it's
Got it.
5 years. So
Right.
hopefully that makes sense.
It does. Yeah, no, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well, seeing no further questions, I want to thank Nicole for sharing her expertise, guiding us through the website, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Let's see.